ENFJ. Ethical intuitive extradom. The mentor. The teacher. Or archetype Hamlet. Jung. Extroverted. Intuitive. Ethical. Rational. Reinin. Dynamic. Obstinate. Aristocratic. Strategic. Constructivist. Carefree. Merry. Decisive. Negativist. Process. Asking. Gulenko. Romance style victim. Communication style passionate. Forms of thinking, dialectical algorithmic cognition. Groups. Beta quadra. NF humanitarians. EJ temperament. Extroverted. He focuses on the outer world. He manipulates real objects, feelings, emotions, and sensations, rather than delves into a world of imagination. Intuitive. He is more idealistic and visionary. More concerned with ideas and concepts than with surroundings. Sees the big picture rather than the details. Ethical. He perceives feelings, emotions and concerns, and interpersonal relationships. More often make decisions based on their own feelings. Prefer ethical evaluations, good or bad. Prefer persuasion over argumentation. Rational. He evaluates the information and then takes the appropriate action depending on the situation using their experience. Tends to plan, makes decisions early. Merry. He is good at noticing emotional background and perceive the emotional aspects separate from the activity. Decisive. Natural state is readiness. Normally he is mobilized. When the work is done, finds it hard to relax without a ritual. Aristocratic. He is inclined to perceive and refer to other people, and themselves, by means of groupings and categories. Obstinate. Ideas are personal, but resources are freely shared and manipulated. It's hard to change his mind. Process. He does things sequentially, from the beginning to the end. Immersed to a process and inclined to single tasking. Carefree. You cannot prepare for everything. Their solutions are likely to be particular to that situation. Dynamic. He perceives events in a continuous sequence, continuous changes rather than discrete states. Constructivist. He tends to minimize the emotional elements of interaction, preferring to focus on the business elements. Negativist. Inclination to detect and resolve problems within things, systems, or processes. Socially and intellectually more distrusting and disinterested at first. Strategic. He focuses on goals, and manipulates them, with methods unsettled. Asking. Typically, he speaks in questions. Prefers dialogues to monologues. Tends to use short remarks, because they are more interested in hearing the other person than self-expression. Romance-style victim. He has initial doubts about the extent to which he is interested in someone else and is hesitant to disclose this interest. Preferring partners who inspire awe in terms of power, physical presence, and the like. Appreciation for the power dynamics present when interacting with such partners. Communication style passionate. They are the most confident in their attitudes towards others, and is not afraid to show their feelings in public and talk about them in ethical assessments. These sociotypes are the most social in informal communication. Forms of thinking, dialectical algorithmic cognition. They view of the universe as a unified struggle of opposites. It is synthetic, negative, and deductive. As dynamics, these types synthesize associational images. As evolutionary types, they increase deductive complexity of them. As negativists, they work well with contradictions and paradoxes. Beta quadra. Merry, decisive, aristocratic. They prefer situations in which the power structure and hierarchy are clearly defined and ambiguities are minimized. People who share their beliefs and express them with obvious enthusiasm and emotion energize them. They value feelings more when they are demonstrated through clear emotional expression. They raise the intensity of their emotional expression in order to elicit a response from others. Aristocracy. NF humanitarians. Their interactions are likely to be formed around common spiritual, philosophical, artistic, literary, or humanitarian interests. Very typical and common examples of such clubs are religious discussion groups, humanitarian and charity organizations, groups of literary and musical activities. EJ temperament. EJ has his own ideas about what reality should be, which causes him to be quick at work, proactive and restless. Walking is fast-paced and purposeful as well as harsh, quietly energetic, with few intense differences in energy level throughout the day, and tends to fidget when forced to remain inactive for long periods of time. EIE Model A. FE Zone of Confidence. Ego Mental Valuable Inert Verbal Acceptable Strong 4D. NI Creative Zone. Ego Mental Valuable Contact Productive Verbal Strong 3D. TE Role. Super Ego Mental Non-Valuable Weak Contact Acceptable Non-Verbal 2D. SI Trouble Zone. Super Ego Mental Non-Valuable Weak Inert Productive Non-Verbal 1D. TI Suggestive Area. Super ID Vital Valuable Weak Contact Acceptable Verbal 1D. SE Activating Zone. Super ID Vital Valuable Weak Inert Productive Verbal 2D. FI Ignoring Zone. ID Vital Non-Valuable Strong Inert Acceptable Non-Verbal 3D. NE Standards Area. ID Vital Non-Valuable Strong Contact Productive Non-Verbal 4D. EIE Functions. FE Zone of Confidence. He is quite proactive in directing the emotional flow in the way he believes is best for a specific situation. He may, for example, try to cheer people up with jokes if he notices that they are overly depressed. Or he may try to persuade people to be serious and focused during a crisis scenario. NI Creative Zone. He enjoys forecasting the future of situations and topics that pique his interest. The individual uses his highly developed sense of vision to promote the development of his more central interests and activities, not as an end. TE Role. He has a desire to look efficient, industrious, and informed in their endeavors. If this does not contradict their primary role, extroverted feeling. SI Trouble Zone. He prioritizes distance and longer-term physical considerations over short distance, here and now. A typical manifestation is a lack of concern for minor aesthetic details, due to the belief that caring for them is a never-ending exercise. TI Suggestive Area. He admires people who have well-developed systems of thought. He prefers straightforward and concise explanations of things over a lot of background knowledge about them. He wants his behaviors to make sense and hence need external confirmation that the mental understanding underlying them is valid. SE Activating Zone. He enjoys participating in competitive and challenging endeavors and seeing his will and personal power grow as he overcomes obstacles with others. He believes he can achieve his goals, but he is unsure whether the path he is taking is the best one. FI Ignoring Zone. He understands discussions or explorations of one's own feelings about other people, but he thinks them less intriguing and significant than those concentrating on one's emotional condition in the same situation. For example, the individual may consider the relationship of a couple who does not clearly exhibit their mutual devotion as loveless or lukewarm. NE Standards Area. He is good at producing new ideas, but he does not take them seriously. He uses his intuition in areas where he is trying to accomplish something rather than indulging in thoughts that have nothing to do with those areas of interest. EIE Intertype Relationships. Dual LSI. Identical EIE. Activator SLE. Mirror IEI. Semi-dual LII. Kindred ESE. Benefactor ILE. Supervisor SEI. Extinguishment EII. Superego LSE. Quasi-identical IEE. Conflictor SLI. Mirage ESI. Business LIE. Beneficiary SEE. Supervise EIL.